Partial funding for this program was provided by the El Paso County Historical Commission, the El Paso County Historical Society, the Hunt Family Foundation, the El Paso Heritage Alliance, and contributors on Indiegogo.com. Major funding for this program was provided by Capstone Productions, Inc., telling El Paso's story to the world.
It's burned, as you can tell. It's post-toasties.
This was the most visible man-made landmark in El Paso's history. It towered over the city for almost half a century, and in half a minute, it was gone. The smokestack was part of a smelter, an American industrial giant that drove the region's economy for more than 110 years. But few people ever saw what went on inside the smelter, and no one will ever see again. Even fewer people were ever allowed inside the smokestack. You're about to go on the last tour of the El Paso smelter. We begin with the former Asarco stack. At 828 feet, it was the tallest in the world when it was built in the 1960s. Our cameras were allowed in during the summer of 2010, just before the demolition of the smelter began.
People really don't realize how big this stack is.
On a warm July morning, retired Asarco engineer Ed Santiesteban led the tour.
That's 60-some foot, isn't it, Ed?
Yeah, it has a 62.5 feet outside diameter on the stack, and the wall thickness is thick. I mean, it's 36 inches thick, and it has like a 2-inch diameter reinforcing steel spaced at 10 inches apart. And then as you can see right now, let's try and open the door, see if it's still...
It's probably welded shut, isn't it?
No, we opened it up the other day.
Oh, you did?
Beautiful. All right. Let's try to go inside there. Hang on to your head there.
The white bag.
Oh, feel the draft.
Hang on one second, let's get some lights.
Be careful, Ed.
I got it. Let me go in first, because I know my way in here. As you can see, you can feel the draft in here. I mean, it's very strong. If you was to get Marilyn Monroe, it would really suck her dress out the stack, you know.
Ed was the smelter's main design engineer for many years and stayed on to work there as the plant prepared for demolition.
Feel that draft now.
Oh, yeah.
What are we looking at here?
We're looking at the annulus, and then we have the inner stack up ahead there.
George, what are you thinking about it? You're inside the smokestack. What do you think?
I had no idea that there were two different areas.
Yeah, just look at the massive thickness.
100 times bigger than I thought it was.
You know, this thing is 36 inches thick in the inside inner stack too, and it's insulated. It goes about 1/3 the height of the stack.
There was a lot of engineering that went into the construction of this amazing stack.
These are the plants that were used to build the 828-foot stack by M.W. Kellogg in 1965. Right here in my lower left-hand corner, you can see a cross-section of the foundation, and the thickness of this foundation is 10 feet 6 inches thick. They bored some holes in the ground and got to the bedrock, which is more stable, and they poured quite a few piers back in 1965. This stack was designed for a 100-mile wind, and so far, thank God, we haven't had those kind of winds around here. You can see in here where this annulus actually was used for ventilating the fugitive dust that was handled in the converter building. You know, that's all it did. You know, it filtered the airborne dust, and it just went through several thousand bags of filter through the bag houses, and it went up the stack. The reason for the two stacks, one inside the other, is the inside was used for handling gases that were produced during the operation, and the outer stack, it created an annulus, and that was a ventilation that we did in the operation. We would ventilate the airborne dust, and it was filtered through bag houses and so forth, and by the time it made it up to the top of the stack, it was just plain clean air. The double stack is strictly to help maintain the temperature on the inner stack. The outer stack is exposed to ambient air, and the inner stack is exposed to the heat that's generated through the operation. And a chimney has to maintain temperature, and the way to maintain temperature, you have to control the temperature of the shell of the stack itself. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a good draft in itself.
Just as few people were ever inside the stack, few were ever allowed to climb it. On another summer morning, Tony Hernandez and Daniel Paco Ledesma get ready to climb to the top of the stack.
Smile, we are now recording.
Just one more last thing. It's blinking, you're on. Go. Have a good day.
Good to go. Thank you, sir.
Their job is to change out some of the aircraft warning lights. They were also asked to videotape the stack as they went to see if other maintenance was needed. The two men began their journey with the camera on Tony's arm recording activity.
Watch your step here. There's several obstructions. Watch out for the spiders, spider webs. Boy, this is like a maze here.
Part of the problem was to get to the base of the ladder. It had been years since anyone had climbed the Asarco tower, and former Asarco technician Doug Salone led the climbers through the old smelter equipment. They each had an additional handheld high-definition TV camera to record things that they saw.
Boy, this whole place sort of reminds me of one of them horror movies, the Freddy Krueger movies. I'm serious, buddy.
We asked Tony Hernandez to describe what he saw on the climb. With the smelter permanently closed, some routine maintenance is still needed. The aircraft warning lights on the old smokestack must continue to operate to show pilots where the stack is at night.
Yep, this is a staging location I was talking about here. This is where we get ready. Okay. All right, you ready, buddy? Okay, let's do this. Okay. Once we get up there, we'll give you guys a.
Yeah, call Sammy. You got that number, right?
Yeah, I got his number. Okay.
You know, so do kind of an inspection overall.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Good luck, guys.
All right, thank you. Okay, I've only gone up 5 feet, and already I see an obstruction here. It looks like the wire mesh. The wire mesh just came undone from the side here. So this needs to be addressed here, and it's also got a few snags here on this wire mesh. If you can see that, there's you can get snagged pretty easy here. Paco, be careful as you walk up because this wire mesh is sticking out. That's why I was talking about we can't really carry too much stuff on us because of the risk of getting caught up. Yeah, the overall condition as I see right now, as far as like this ladder, is really, really bad. Just because it's rusted. That really creates a hazard. Yeah, again, the ladder here is pretty bad. I mean, it's rusty. These bolts, all this bolts and stuff, like, I'm taking a picture of it now, like that bolt right there, you know, that's rusted, you know, all that should be Should have industrial paint on it, protective coating on it, and it's just been neglected. This whole plant has not been operable, so.
This stack, when it was built, was probably the largest project in the city of El Paso for many, many years. It was imposing, and it was imposing to watch it go up, which I had the privilege of seeing that.
Arnold Pinedo was on the construction crew in 1965 when the tall Asarco chimney smokestack was built. As a concrete inspector, he rode up the stack many times in a bucket. He remembers the continuous line of trucks delivering concrete 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for more than a year.
Placement of the concrete had to be continuous, and that's why they used a slip form to move as it went up. After this particular shaft was built, then they built a shaft on the inside, which is a constant diameter, a cylinder that goes all the way up. The reinforcing steel would have stretched out 168 miles across the countryside here if it were laid end to end.
I don't know how many times we'll be able to come up here to change these lights if they don't take care of these this ladder here. We're gonna have to fly them up here on the helicopter. The main thing about this is don't look down, keep going up. Now actually when I'm taking a picture of what looks like, to me, they look like bullets have hit the side of the structure. As you can see there and there, those look like bullet shots because they're like perfectly round little indentions. We're here to the next staging area, resting area. Thank God. Starting to sweat a little more. Okay. Again, I'm taking pictures of the tack welds on this platform here. The tack welds are busted, and that's not a good thing, fellas. The ordinary person, the everyday person, sees everything on TV, reads it in the news, sees it on TV. But there are too many people that can sit here where we're at today and look over there and think about this. Then you get a different idea, you get a different feeling, brother. See, Paco, every year I do this, bro. Every year I do this. They try to keep the same person that comes up here all the time. So I imagine next year they're going to call you to do this again, God providing us with another day. We don't even know if this world's going to be here next year, tomorrow for that matter. But now that you've been in here, you've been chosen to be on the special crew to change the lights on a Asarco stack every year. That's really an honor.
You know, here's this is the breaching flue, as you can see here. I mean, it's already rusted out. That's the rust bucket. But this was a bypass flue system when equipment was to shut down emergency, you know. And you can see that's really, really tall.
It's a lot bigger than I expected. I had no idea there was so much kind of dust and stuff floating around as well. And what exactly is that?
This is just residue. It's just when you have smoke, you have a residue like soot on a chimney.
Sure.
You know, you burn firewood, you're gonna build up soot, and that soot is nothing but just carbon powdered, which is not a contaminated item at all. You know, that's all it is. That can be reprocessed.
Sure.
The ladder platforms were spaced about 100 feet apart.
Hey, there's the choo-choo train. The Santa Fe. See it? There's the Santa Fe Railroad. Okay, let's proceed. We only have 2 hours of camera time, so I guess that's our time limit.
We're sitting at 3,745 foot at elevation. The stack is 828 foot high. Saying an atmosphere is 33 foot. We've got around 34 atmospheres in this stack. And since the air is at a certain weight at 3,700 foot, it's lighter at 828 foot, and this is where you got your draft. The heavy air down here is pushing through, wanting to go up to the lighter air.
Okay, we're finally here on the first ring. You can hear the helicopter behind me. Oh, thank God. Okay, let me wait for my buddy here. Okay, here's my buddy Paco. Paco, how you feel, bro? Paco's doing a great job here. Thank you, Lord, for Paco today. But anyway, I'm taking a picture of the catwalk here. Like I said, it's all rust. See all this rust here? All that is rusted here. You know, that's really a great hazard here. I'm gonna take a picture first of the catwalk and then come back around and take a picture of the stack itself. No bullet holes up here, it doesn't look like. Yeah, there's a... Oh, let me get the picture of El Paso from up here. You can see a little bit more from up here. There's the other stack, Asarco stack. Here's the light that we're gonna change, I believe. Here's a look at it. Okay. I believe, oh, okay, it's pretty easy. We need no tools, we need no tools. There's a great picture of the Southwest, the Rio Grande. As we come around the back ways here, I'm taking a look at this catwalk. I don't like to get too close to that edge. I know there's a railing there, but I don't trust it. As rusty as this structure is, I wouldn't trust any of this.
Right here, it shows the outer vertical reinforcing bar locations throughout the circumference of the outer part of the stack itself. You can see it's numbered from 1 all the way up to 30, and it shows you the outside reinforcing vertical bars that just follows the perimeter. It's offset about 2 inches into the concrete, and that gives you the placement schedule of what reinforcing goes where. That's steel, right? You know, the demolition engineers, they think this is a marvel of design that was done back in the mid-60s. I mean, back then, you know, we didn't have the computers that we have now to calculate and all that. Everything was done by hand through a slide rule and so forth, and it was very tedious. We're walking inside the annular stack. As you can see, it's like about 10 feet wide, you know, and it goes all the way up to the stack, and right now you can see there's a vertical ladder there. That's a maintenance, you know, just part of the way. Part of the way. This is was part of the monitoring equipment that we had in there. Med had to come in here and do a service. Sure. But look at this. This is just, that's awesome, man. That is really interesting. Be careful there, don't walk too fast, Ernie.
This goes all the way.
Yes, goes
around.
all the way around. Watch out.
This outer wall.
The outer stack.
Just as thick as the.
Yes,
inner?
the same thickness, 36 inches thick, as you can see here.
What do you got here?
This is part of the structure that they had when they were building the flue. At one time, we were gonna come in from another direction and use the inner stack, the annulus, but the design got shut off and we came up with a different proposal, which we have now on the west side. That's to keep temperature on the inner stack, because a draft needs temperature in order to operate. So if you have a cold platinum chamber there, you're not going to have a very good draft at all.
All right, Paco, let's do this. We're gonna change the first light out.
It's burned, as you can tell. It's post-toasties.
Wow, it's a beautiful, beautiful day. Beautiful day to be here.
Hey Ernie, look at this. Just look at the gentleman's hair, man. It's trying to suck his hair off his skull there. Look at
It's not Marilyn Monroe.
I know.
There's a heck of a draft in here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
Oh, it feels good.
I like it.
Yep.
I think we've seen the stack, dudes. That's an interesting adventure.
You didn't expect this, did you?
No, let me get out here and get you guys coming out.
Climb out.
I'll hold the lamp.
Yeah, thanks for the tour, dude.
Yeah. As a kid, you saw it go up. Now, as an adult, you saw
I
it.
never thought I'd go inside of it. That's for
Well,
sure.
that's
Probably in the next 2 years you're going to see it come down. Where are the blowers? Because I remember were these blowers? These are
okay.
blowers.
Yeah, but this is a secondary ventilation system here.
Right, that's the one that fit in the
Yeah,
side
it
of
goes into the stack.
Right. Believe it or not, in the last 15 years of operation, this was a pretty clean plant.
I appreciate the opportunity to coming back down and seeing this structure directly, and it brings magnificent memories to me of when I used to go out. My wife used to say, "Are you crazy?" But I said, "That's my job."
A lot of engineering went into this.
Heck yeah.
From this elevation here, it goes all the way up to the top. And as you can see, the outer stack is 818 feet. Plus, from the 818 feet, it goes up 8.5 feet up, which brings you up to 828 feet to the top of the stack.
Okay, we're about to proceed, buddy. Are you ready? Are you good to go? Okay, my buddy's ready to go. We're about to proceed. Thank you, guys. I'll see you guys on the level. Next stop, next destination. Upper level, upper room. That's one thing that separates me from the rest of the group today. I did this today, thank God. Okay, we're finally here. Woo! Woo! That's like a rocky thing. Once you get to the top, you should give that little sigh of relief, of accomplishment. All right. Good, fella. Paco, we made it, buddy. All right. Wow. Okay. Hold on here. I'm taking a picture of me and Paco here. We made it, guys. We're up here. All right, thank you. All right, buddy. These fixtures here, they're supposed to be to, of course, to signal air traffic. As you can see, it's dirty real bad, so it's dulled it out. It's not bright anymore. So these things to me would have to be changed out. Okay, that concludes what we're here for. And as you can see, we got beautiful pictures of Juarez and El Paso. Today was it was great. It was something that I look forward to today when I woke up, just for the fact that, you know, there's not too many people that get to go way up there and do this. Even though we changed the lights, but it gave us a chance to look at the city from a different view, of course. You know, from a view that nobody else is going to see today. You know, and Daniel here is a good guy, and we seen a lot of things up there together that need to be addressed. But the whole project was something to remember. It was a great experience today, and I enjoyed it. And that's what I was grateful today. You know, when I woke up, that I was able and I had the opportunity to see the world from a different angle today.
Look at that. No, he's okay.
Demolition of the former El Paso Asarco smelter site began in earnest in the late summer of 2010. The bankruptcy court provided the site trustee, Roberto Puga, $52 million to clean the site for reuse and to sell the assets, including the land once it was remediated. How best to do that was left to his discretion. By selling assets from the site, like scrap metal and equipment, the trust was able to make $28 million that will be used for additional remediation and site cleanup. There were 4 sizable smokestacks on the smelter site in West El Paso when the demolition began in 2010. The first 2 stacks were metal, and they were pulled down by a long cable attached to a tractor. This 150-foot stack, the antimony stack, came down in 2011. You see a worker walking away from the base of the antimony stack. He had just finished cutting all of the large bolts that fastened the stack to its concrete base, except the 2 facing the tractor. So when the tractor moved, the stack was pulled off its base, and the remaining 2 bolts were broken by the weight of the stack itself. You can hear the bolts break as the stack is pulled over. Next to go was the 300-foot acid plant stack. It was also metal and bolted into a large concrete pad.
We have lean.
That left these 2 icons on El Paso's horizon, both made of concrete. The shorter of the 2, at 610 feet tall, was built in the 1950s. The other was the most visible man-made structure in the El Paso area. The 828-foot stack, with the orange and white stripes and the word Asarco painted in black, could be seen for many miles. Even air traffic controllers used it as a landmark.
To Quebec Foxtrot, Roger. There's traffic says they'll be orbiting over the Asarco smokestack at 1,000 AGL. Guys, if you do pick them up visually.
It went into operation in 1966. These last two stacks were originally slated for demolition in 2011. Some citizens who thought the stacks should be preserved formed a non-profit group called Save the Stacks. They wanted them to remain standing as monuments to the history of the smelter. The trustee, Roberto Puga, gave the group an additional 13 months to come up with a plan for their preservation. The group made a serious late effort to prove that the smokestacks were structurally sound and paid an engineering firm to inspect them and certify that they would stand for many years to come. In October 2012, engineers from the firm Industrial Access climbed both stacks and tested the concrete strength.
What are you doing here?
We're here doing a stack inspection for a group called Save the Stacks.
Two guys rappelling did what?
They're doing a drop and they're taking Schmidt hammer readings. So they use a rebound hammer that gives us a PSI strength, but this gives you a basic understanding of what the concrete condition is like. As they drop down, they'll inspect it every 10 feet, and then we put that in a graph so that we can see the condition of the stack overall.
With that new engineering data, the Save the Stacks group asked the city of El Paso to accept possession of the stacks and agree to cover liability costs.
Our analysis to date shows that these stacks are safe and sound, and now the last part we need to get taken care of is get somebody to take the liability, and we've been talking to all our city representatives, and we please request that everybody also call them, email them, ask them to vote in favor of the resolution on Tuesday to take over the stacks.
City Council refused, and the stacks were scheduled for demolition.
The demolition we're targeting in the first or second week of April. But the trust has decided that the stacks are going to come down, and we're actively planning that.
In December 2012, crews started work on the drop zones for the demolition of the stacks.
Right now we're driving through the berms that we have constructed and put in place. It's kind of a unique design that we've put together for this project because of some of the concerns for the dust and dust control. We've put these dust berms to serve two purposes. One mainly is to put them in place to control any fly rock or any splattering debris that may happen from the felling of the stacks, as well as to work in our dust control system. So as we're looking out here, you can see the berms are pretty well in place. This is kind of the layout area for the 828-foot stack. I don't know if you can see far off in the distance there's a cone, which is where the top of the stack should come to rest. So what we're standing on basically is the center line of the stack design and the drop here. And about right here where this cone is where we're looking at the top of the stack to be coming and finishing up and its final resting place.
The drop zone was covered with a heavy plastic mesh to contain the existing soil. Then a foot of clean dirt went over the liner. Empty cargo containers were placed at the base of each stack to prevent debris from hitting a nearby railroad track, canal, and highway. The canal was protected by a wooden cover provided by the trustee. This was done just in case some of the debris from the stacks coming down would fly this far.
This is the layout for the explosives. These dots you see on the stack will be laid out by the blaster, and he will lay out the pattern he needs to do. These holes will be bored out and about 3/4 of the way through, and explosives will be placed inside each one of these holes. Then the mechanical removal will happen and take out that piece that we can remove mechanically to reduce the amount of explosives that are needed to facilitate the demolition.
So a similar opening will be created in the big stack. It'll be a larger opening, of course.
We have about 300 pounds of dynamite being used on both stacks. That's combined, that's right. It is manufactured by a company called Dyno Nobel. That's the same Nobel as in the prize. You might know that the Nobel Prize is funded by money made from the discovery of dynamite.
Explosive demolition is one of the most commonly, if not the most commonly used techniques for large chimney demolition. Another basic that both of these stacks are planned for the same event. In its simplest term, I mean, all the work's done by gravity. And so the goal is to basically fall the structure like a tree.
This chunk will be cut out, all right? In similar shape as on the other side. The charges will take out this concrete as well. And then bingo.
And lastly, the rebar removal will happen on the day of the blast. Once we're sure all conditions are correct and we're ready to go, this will be the last thing that will be done. The tension will be removed from the back rebar of the stack, and then the signal will be sent to the blaster that we're ready to go on that, and the countdown will begin.
As part of our documentary coverage, we placed 4 live internet cameras at the drop zone to view the event close up. These were the only live cameras on site for the April 13th demolition.
Just like that, that's beautiful.
With extensive help from KVIA TV engineers, we had 4 internet cameras microwaved to the KVIA master control room, where the station could take the cameras live on their newscasts, and Capstone Productions could also send the cameras streaming live on the website, ephistory.com. We had hundreds of TV internet viewers from Arizona to Germany.
This is looking pretty good.
It needs to come up, I mean, it can come up just a tad to get the top of the stack.
Okay.
With the water cannons on the drop zone, the TV engineers asked where would be a good place for our live cameras.
This would be the least amount of water, probably right here.
That's what we want to know. Yeah. That's what I wanted to ask you.
On top, that would be on top of this hill right here.
So that's where we decided to put the 4th camera, the one we call the crash cam. We knew there was a chance it might not survive, since it was the closest camera to the impact zone. So preparations were in place as Demolition Day, April 13th, approached. This was becoming the largest TV coverage event in El Paso history.
What to expect. The media area will be accessible to the media at 5 a.m. You'll need to have your credentials. The media area access will be closed at 6 a.m. The most likely time for the demolition will be 6:45 in the morning.
Before dawn on April 13th, Demolition Day, TV trucks and photographers converge in the media area. On nearby hills, people start gathering and staking out front row seats to watch an historic event. There are even some tailgate parties. Roads around the smelter are closed to traffic. The weather is mild, with few clouds, and there is a slight breeze. Good conditions for a demolition.
Joining me now is Jackson Polk. He's a documentarian. We've been talking to him throughout the week, and he's one of the reasons we have those exclusive cameras inside the fall area. And Jackson, we're hours away. You put a lot of time and effort in here. You getting excited?
Hey, we're
minutes away.
We're minutes away. I want to know the camera's still working. We can't see them out here, but yeah, we're doing our video documentary, and we thank KVIA for your help on the cameras.
Why? What got you interested in the smokestacks and this demolition process years ago?
We do El Paso history, and this is a huge part of El Paso history. This smelter was an engine that made this entire valley more prosperous than it ever could have been by itself. So having it lost and having it gone, this is a turning point in El Paso's history.
Talk about your crew right now. I see a lot of people running around here with cameras, setting up microphones. What are we talking about in terms of your production right now?
Oh, we have 3 cameras here. We have one out at KVIA, another one out in the field, another one up on Cristo Rey, and 4, as you know, over at the smelter, if they're still working.
Well, let's hope they are.
All right, we think so. So far, we do.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. Thank you again for all your help. Well, likewise, the feeling is mutual. We appreciate all you've been doing for us as well. Again, allowing us to give you some exclusive access that we can't get anywhere else.
About 20 minutes before the blast, water cannons begin misting the drop zone. At 5 minutes before the blast comes the first of 2 signals, a red flag. At 3 minutes to blast, fireworks are shot into the air. Then, a few minutes before 7 a.m., the blast sequence begins. One of our close-up cameras is live on the detonation as dynamite tears through the base of the 610-foot stack, and it falls in about 15 seconds. The charges go off at the base of the big stack. As a small stack falls, it breaks in two. The top portion briefly flies alone and makes an eerie whistling sound. Then the small stack hits the ground, and rock and debris go flying by the camera. The 828-foot stack will take 30 seconds to fall. But watch what happens at detonation. Remember, it's a double stack. The base of the outer stack drops about 40 feet as explosions tear out the bottom. Then the double stack falls slowly to the ground. Hitting with an explosive force that instantly pulverizes tons of concrete into millions of pieces and a cloud of dust. Here's the view from crash cam. Even though it was covered with dust and debris, the camera survived.
That was pretty cool.
A few days after the stacks came down, we went back to survey the scene. This is what was left of the base of the big stack. The 828-foot concrete tower collapsed into this long gray line. Amidst all the rubble, there were some recognizable items. Here's a piece of an aircraft warning light. This is part of one of the ring platforms that Tony and Paco walked on. And at the far end of the drop zone, we found this twisted metal that was once at the very top of the stack. When we came back a week later, a work crew had removed the concrete at the base of the stack. From this angle, you can still see some of the curved wall that formed the base of the inner stack.
This is a piece of rebar from the back of the large stack, the 828 stack. So right here is where we had the back of the stack. And this is the section that was last cut just hours before the explosive charges went off.
These pieces of orange-painted concrete were part of the stripes that started at the 400-foot level. This black piece was probably part of the O in Asarco.
With the demolition of the two concrete stacks at the site, the project has reached a huge milestone. I think we can safely say we're at least the halfway point towards completion of our dual goals of abating the environmental threat posed by the site, and secondly, returning this iconic piece of property back to productive use. We have been able to increase the remediation budget from $52 million to $80 million. And that has allowed us to tackle portions of the site that previously would have been left unabated.
One of these areas is what's called the Parker Brothers Arroyo. You can see it highlighted in this aerial taken before the cleanup began. The natural arroyo, or canyon, was covered with slag, the molten waste of the smelting process that was dumped there for decades. With the additional funds, the trustee decided to start a massive cleanup of the arroyo, something that was not required in the bankruptcy order. After the slag was removed, a large hole was prepared where construction and demolition debris will be buried on the site. The pit is lined with an impermeable plastic barrier and will be permanently sealed with clean soil. When the work is finished, most of the arroyo will return to its natural state. Part of it will become a concrete channel that allows rainwater from the Franklin Mountains to bypass the buried waste as the water flows into the Rio Grande.
So that's where the water's coming through, huh?
Actually, it comes up to where the bushes end.
Oh.
There's a little ditch there, and then it overflows.
A bike path is planned that will connect the river with neighborhoods along Mesa Street. The view that was once dominated by smokestacks has changed forever. It's almost like they were never there. In our next documentary, Last Tour of the El Paso Smelter, Volume 2, we tour the smelter with two men who worked there. Our cameras were allowed in just before the smelter's demolition began in the summer of 2010.
This building that we are sitting in right now, if it was in operation, we wouldn't dare be sitting here.
Oh, no.
It was so loud, fire would be belching out of the converters, there would be pouring mat over here, the cranes would be running back and forth. The only one that was allowed on this floor was a crane chaser.
Our guides were two retired employees. They showed us a view of the smelter that few had seen, and no one will ever see again. In our next documentary, Last Tour of the El Paso Smelter, Volume 2, it's a rare look inside the operations of the smelter.
Oh, you're going to see inside the furnace now. All this here that you see right here, that's blister copper.
Is this one of the furnaces that rotates?
Yes, this is a converter, furnace number 2.
But as the smelter disappears from the El Paso landscape, some think a permanent museum should be created to remember its history and the stories of the people who lived and worked there. Here's a website if you'd like to get involved in this effort. Major funding for this program was provided by Capstone Productions, Inc. Partial funding for this program was provided by the El Paso County Historical Commission, the El Paso County Historical Society, the Hunt Family Foundation, and from the El Paso Heritage Alliance.